Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back. I appreciate you coming in to join me here in the memory hole. I wanted to spend a few minutes with you here, just a few minutes of your time, to talk a little bit about Google and YouTube. Nothing is going to be surprising. Nothing that I'm about to say is going to surprise you in any way. It's just that I was unaware of this particular function of YouTube, and it has startling implications. So while it might sound obvious to some of you, I want you to sit there and really let it sink in, especially for someone that creates content like myself. I feel like that's such a lame phrase, creates content. Produce presentations on I help educate people, in other words, in a way. And in return, the viewers help educate me, so I've created that, and that's good. So what I'm trying to say is, it has great implications for people that actually actively upload things. And it was also a reminder that the days of being able to create alter accounts, shell accounts, to just shit post and have fun and goof off or play a character are almost over. And it's going to be really disappointing and sad when it's finally gone. But in my eyes, and I hate to be the cynic because I'm usually always an optimist, not a hopeless optimist, not an unreasonable optimist, just a realist, but always hopeful that the best thing will turn out to be true. But in this case, I don't think it's going to be good at all. The days of a universal internet identification system will be employed. You will always have to have your identity tied to your online identities at all times. There will be no hiding behind shell accounts. There will be perhaps it will eliminate the current iteration of what we know to be bots, right? What some people on the left would call Russian bots, right? But just we know everyone employs bots now. Every website has essentially become, in varying levels of severity, a petri dish, a test site, a psychological operation. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I can back that statement up to an extent. If you can fact check me on this, in fact, but if you look up Reddit and where the most of their IP traffic was coming from a few years ago, they actually did a poll, and it wasn't even a subreddit that did it. It was the entire website that did it, right? And it was this big event. I don't know what it was for, right? It was a few years ago. I don't know what it was for, but part of it was that they were going to see who the biggest Reddit fans were. Sup, Reddit? Today we're going to find out which one of you nerds like us the most. So they did a poll, or not maybe a poll, but they took the IP address and their general analytics to see geographically where the clicks were coming from. And it was all from U.S. military bases. More importantly, a singular one. And researchers looking into it further had discovered some different operations projects that they were running over there that might overlap with why they might be on Reddit. You can especially check me on that last one. I don't know if that's true, but the point is that IP address, and you know what's hysterical? The best part about it all is they even commented on how strange that was, but they didn't say it was strange. They're like, wow, can't believe we have so many fans in the Air Force. It's like, are you kidding me? You don't have fans in the Air Force. Those are the psychological digital operators that are on there to sow discord and information, or in other words, what they call fact-checking. Okay, so let me cut to the chase here and talk about what happened to me on YouTube. The other day, as you know, I've been banned a lot, right? I've been banned a lot. Maybe even more than a lot of people you know. But also not the worst case that can ever be had. I've been banned from Twitter, I think, at least once, maybe twice. I've been banned from Instagram twice. I've been banned from YouTube 4 times. I am now on Memory Hold 5.0 on YouTube. I got banned from Linktree, a service that merely provides you with a digital container where all of your links are in one place. Instead of having, fans, viewers, whatever your application is, right? Like, if you're making music, it doesn't even matter. Creators of all sorts have all these different accounts on different websites. They have their merchandise website, they have their main website, they have the Linktree. It's why it's called the tree. It branches out. You got mad links. That's all it was. There was no content there. I got banned from that. And why? Likely because those links led to controversial subject matter, aka information about currently trending information, and sometimes not trending but historical information that just didn't fit the narrative. It didn't go with what was being said. I don't know how they did it. There is no posting there. You can't, so there's no risk. There's no chance that my banning on Linktree came from a post I made or something I upload. There is no such thing. You simply put your links in. So in my case, it was my YouTube, my DLive, my BitChute, my Rockfin, my PayPal, my Venmo, my Cash App, and they banned me. Isn't that interesting? So let's take a moment, and that's not even my main point about the YouTube thing. Let's take a moment and just think about the implications of that. Okay, you've banned me from YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all those times. So you've banned the source point of where that content is emanating from, right? Or what they'd call disinformation is emanating from. See, but now what happens is when you ban or start banning things like Linktree, which, by the way, I have never heard of before. Usually ban waves really only come when it comes to videos, maybe podcasts. But really, the purges were happening on Twitter and YouTube, But when you get rid of Linktree, when you ban something like Linktree, you are banning the distribution point, okay? Does that make sense? So not only are you eradicating the source point, aka my YouTube channel, my whatever channel, you are now also destroying, after you've already destroyed me and the remains are still smoldering, you've also destroyed my source distribution, because I have more than one YouTube channel, right? It's not just YouTube. I mean, I have the YouTube channel they just banned, but then I also have the same videos on BitChute, on Rockfin, and I'm explaining this for outsiders here so they can understand what I'm talking about. In other words, Linktree was ideal, so people knew where to find me and knew what links to follow in the case that my YouTube got banned. But look what they did. They destroyed my Linktree, didn't they? So they destroyed the source point and the source distribution point. Isn't that interesting when it comes down to strategic tactics in a warfare situation? You might be thinking to yourself how silly it is for me to use the word warfare, but it is actually warfare, whether you might be, whether you're not aware, you're aware of it, right? Because we're talking about a cognitive battle space. We're talking about a psychological operation, an ongoing one, or just a series of repetitive psychological operations. Don't quote me. Look at the NATO documents that talk about how we're very rapidly approaching the days where the battlefield has transformed from a physical space to the battlefield of the mind. And what do they mean by that? What they meant was every single individual as a human being, as a singular person, will be used as a data point and antenna to distribute harmful disinformation on behalf of an enemy country such as China or Russia. Typically, we usually hear disinformation used in the realm of Russian disinformation, but it's everybody, as I said, for varying purposes. This is incredibly dangerous because if I am someone that is considered to be disinformation, then a lot of people are at risk of losing the ability to communicate online, or at least the remaining human beings that are left using the internet. That's a joke, half a joke. There's a lot of bots online is the punchline there. So now it becomes a national security threat. But you might be thinking to yourself, wait a moment, how did it get from, okay, everybody's going to be used as a battlefield, everybody's mind is going to be used as a battlefield. I can get that because everybody's posting online every day. Sometimes when they repost the news articles from a website that's fake. Okay, I get it, but how is that dangerous to national security? Well, that has recently been established. And I am not going to beat around the bush here. I'm going to take fucking credit for predicting this. I specifically. Now, we've all heard others kind of repeat something that's similar in vain, but I got specific with it when I said specifically that COVID-19 is going to, for the first time, give the powers that be the ability and opportunity to actually finally quantify conspiracy theories, alternative theories to the mainstream, as dangerous on a physical level, right? In the past, think about it. You just ignored the websites. You laughed at them. You saw a stupid conspiracy tweet. Even if it was real and you were the ignorant one, you laughed about it and you moved on. It was not a big deal. The conspiracy theorist was always portrayed, not that this was a good thing, as a goofy tinfoil hat wearing mouth breather in the Hollywood films, an innocent pawn, so to speak, right? In later films, the conspiracy theorist archetype in Hollywood films sort of changed, to the archetype where the conspiracy theorist ended up being right in the end, but typically doesn't make it through the film. There's a bunch of different variations to it, right? The point is that now, though, the character arc of the conspiracy theorist is domestic terrorist. That's the level we're at, and I'm not kidding. This is not just hyperbole on behalf of the media. This is real. And being quantified as a domestic terrorist is a real threat to us, because that puts us through an entirely different threat matrix than any other normal citizen. And my point is how did we become considered domestic terrorists? Well, it was because COVID helped that along. It was really COVID-19 and QAnon, right? Those were both essential. Number one, QAnon mobilized the more militant versions of the alt-right, which were therein also mobilized by little other political influencers that were clearly involved in this QAnon psyop that was a lie from the very beginning and very transparent. It had military operation written all over it. And there's a reason General Flynn, of all people, was pushing it, because he also had his hands in the beginning of Pizzagate, which I believe was a different story, but I wouldn't doubt if Pizzagate, not that it was a prototype run, because there was something there for sure. It was more like, I think they learned from Pizzagate. And the fact that Flynn was in Pizzagate but then went on to promote QAnon when it was a clear, obvious fraud really made me wonder about his motivations and who he's really working for and what he's really working to achieve. Even if he didn't really promote too much crazy shit during the Pizzagate days, though. So I'm not saying he went full QAnon even back then. I'm saying that was like Flynn's beginnings in the alt-right conspiracy world, right? That's how they would describe it. But now it's different, because what did QAnon end up in? What QAnon did was divide and conquer, actually. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what QAnon did. Look, when QAnon happened, it was 2017, okay? October or so 2017 was the first post. I was there in that very first post because he posted on a website I was on, because it was where crazy shit was happening. And, I didn't think much of it. I paid attention to it just because I knew it was going to get popular, but I didn't really think much of it. But think about it this way. That was only 1 year into the pizza-related research, right? Things to this day are still fresh and interesting in the sense that there's still so many things that we have yet to uncover about it. So to me, when I think of that subject, I don't think of, God, I can't stand to look into it anymore. I actually think that, maybe tonight is the night where I actually uncover something new. It's still fresh in my mind where I still want to talk to the public about it, expose it to the public. I'll never stop talking about it. It was very impressionable to me, right? It was something big, for better or for worse. The legitimate parts of it and the illegitimate parts, they both taught me something. They taught me about the art of disinformation and how to propagate it. And they taught me how true information is suppressed. And it also taught me that true information exists at all. The point is that QAnon stemmed off of this, but it split us in half. So all of the important research being done into something that is likely legitimate, regardless of what we were looking into, And please, if you're listening, throw away the media definition. We're not talking about Hillary Clinton eating kids or like whatever the media definition. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the phenomenon of just strange sexual child innuendo shit among the same group of like Hollywood, Washington D.C. elite that we repeatedly see throughout. It's a weird way to explain it. It's late. I don't know how to explain them. They're just fucking weird. Those who know, it's not that. QAnon came from that and radicalized that. Everything about QAnon promoted radicalization towards the end. And I hate to unironically use that term, but just hear me out here. Hear me out. Radicalization is a real thing. Okay? Radicalization is a real thing. And what QAnon was promoting was the idea that it was so bad that we needed to accept martial law because Donald Trump, president at the time, Donald Trump was sure to enact martial law in order to take back control from the global elite, the shadow government, right? Okay, I get it, because there is something called a shadow government out there. There is a underlying structure beneath the government you see. That's like a really basic observation to make. Simple as that. For example, the president at max is in there for 8 years. I mean, these people are lifetime politicians. Their entire lives, they've seen like 30 presidents come and go. You know what I mean? Those are the people that are the shakers and movers. Basic. But what ended up happening is the one piece of evidence that QAnon was a psyop was, number one, they at first told us not to do anything, including protest peacefully, online activism, any form of like your average activism that wasn't violent. They didn't even think to do, because the whole spiel of QAnon was sit back and enjoy the show, aka watch as the news comes out, and then QAnon will post and confirm, see, the post I made before that news article proves that Hillary Clinton really is in Guantanamo Bay. And it's like, what are you talking about? But then after all these years of him posting, or however many years it was, all this shit, a big culmination, he was building expectation of something happening, and nothing ever happened. That's where the joke 2 more weeks comes from, because everyone kept saying, who is a QAnon follower, not just you wait 2 more weeks and they're going to arrest the shadow government, just 2 more weeks, there's going to be military tribunals, and it never came, right? And instead, Trump was beaten by Biden in an embarrassing fashion, and it gets even more embarrassing because now we're living in the present where Mar-a-Lago has been raided. They're talking about nuclear documents being in there. Now, I'm not saying there's no shenanigans involved in all of that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that for a QAnon believer, it has to be a really hard reality to be living in right now. I remember Titus Frost was covering Jordan Sather. Jordan Sather was a really big QAnon guy. And it sucks because like his videos were really clean, really well done, really presentable, but he applied it all to analyzing QAnon drops is what we explained it as, right? Anyway, all of it culminates because none of that happens, right? And a pandemic breaks out instead. And now the QAnon people are convinced that they used the pandemic as cover to perpetrate some shenanigans at the elections. Now they're angry, right? This is where the mobilization, the militarization of the QAnon crowd comes in, because they were upset. And this is where the Capitol insurrection comes in. And I specifically warned my viewers, and we watched it live. But even in the days leading up to, we knew it was going to happen. And there was a time early on where I was like, maybe I should head down there. DC isn't that far. I decided very quickly after that not to, because I saw the writing on the wall. The reason I didn't go down there ended up not being correct. The reason I didn't go down there was because of the Christmas bombing in Nashville. Remember, the guy parked his RV, he had the megaphone, the announcement, the thing on the speaker, counting down for the bomb, and it blew up and caused a big blackout. We covered on my channel how he used a thermobaric bomb. They say that he just decided to kill himself in a flashy way, but you don't build a thermobaric bomb for that. It was the first ever of its type used on United States soil. Well, he did it in an RV is my point. And there were some articles that came out in the lead up of the January 6th thing talking about shit. As I'm saying it, now I'm going to forget it. Talking about terrorist activity and RV. They say there might be more threats, terrorist threats, and they might be using RVs. Something like that, bouncing off of the Nashville story. So in other words, RV bomb blows up in Nashville on Christmas. And then in January, the Capitol riot ends up on January 6th. But before that, the news was covering how there could be terror threats about RVs, using RVs. Well, it just so happened that when those news articles were coming out, there was a big plan for a bunch of, more conservative folks to make a convoy of RVs to go down to DC. So I said, holy shit. And at this point, I put my tinfoil hat on and said, holy shit, they're going to use these RVs to fucking blow some shit up. You know what I'm saying? Some real FF, some real fake flag behavior right there, right? I know, a little overboard. But that's all it took for me to be like, to realize the real potential, because the atmosphere was not good. There was anger, hate, and violence. It was culminating, and you can feel it. And that's precisely what happened. I warned everyone not to go. Nobody that I know went. And we live streamed the January 6th so-called insurrection live on the Memory Hold YouTube channel, Memory Hold D Live channel. And the fruits of that, my friends, is what I'm ranting about, is the infodemic. Now, at the end of January 6th, they have successfully quantified conspiracy theories with violence. No longer is a conspiracy theory just something goofy that your friend brings up. No longer is a conspiracy theory something to be treated lightly in a Hollywood film. No longer. Now all of them are threats to national security. And why is that? Because we could see the dark side of conspiracy theories. And that is QAnon. And that is not just some random attack, but a straight up insurrection, as they put it, storming the Capitol building. Now, I'm not going to bring them up here because this isn't part of the video, but there's arguments to be made. People opened the doors. There's security camera footage, okay? I'll just put that out there. Police did some weird things that day. There was also some very interesting MAGA people that were really calling for all of them to be breaking into the Capitol. Nobody really seemed very interested in doing that until a select few individuals riled everybody up to do so. And those individuals are interesting because they were on the most wanted from the insurrection on the FBI's website. But then when a bunch of researchers realized that one of them was actually a military guy and had some relevant career experience in terms of, I don't know what it was. As soon as researchers discovered that, the FBI actually removed him from the website. And it was funny because if, let's say it was a top 20 most wanted and he was number 17, they just removed number 17 and didn't fix it. So it went from top most wanted number 16 and then to 18. So they never fixed it. So who was that guy? I forget his name. You know who I'm talking about. He was the guy that was just on video screaming, "We got to go into the Capitol." People were fighting him too. People were like, dude, no, what the fuck are you talking? We can't do that. For as many people that were calling to go in there, there's a lot of people calling like not to go in there. There's one video clip I saw of like a SWAT, of just a normal MAGA guy yelling at SWAT officers that were just standing there as they were raiding the Capitol building, and he was asking them, screaming at them, "Why the fuck aren't you stopping them? That's our Capitol building. Why aren't you stopping them from going in there?" So he came there to protest, and even he was disturbed by what unfolded. My point is that that is precisely all they needed. But to quantify conspiracy theories is dangerous and violent, and to therefore clamp down on and censor comprehensively. But the real icing on the cake, what really sealed the deal, was COVID-19 misinformation and disinformation. That did it. Because that information, anything counter to the COVID narrative, the vaccine narrative, anything, contributes to vaccine hesitancy, in their opinion. And if it contributes to vaccine hesitancy, that makes it so the pandemic continues to go on far longer than it would if those goddamn conspiracy theorists didn't spread disinformation. So what's being done about it? Well, I'll tell you what they did in response to it. The World Health Organization has officially acknowledged or created, I don't know if they created it, but acknowledged the term infodemic. It sounds like a buzzword, doesn't it? I don't think it is. At first I did, but it's dawning on me, but that it's far more than a simple buzzword. It's a buzzword that you'd see in perhaps a media article talking about a slew of bad information that came out at once, right? It's an infodemic. No. This is different. What they're talking about is the pandemic-like influence, the pandemic-like characteristics that mental contagions exhibit among the human population and how they must be stopped. In other words, our alternative theories, narratives, our conspiracy theories against the mainstream narrative, our so much as saying, I don't know if I'm going to get the vaccine, I'll wait for everybody else to get it first, is enough to be rendered a national security threat or a danger to others, right? Because not only are we spreading theories that make people not want to get the vaccine, but it's because of those theories that we're also not vaccinating ourselves. And because of that, we can directly quantify in the regions with the highest rate of conservative people, right? That's a direct reason because their vaccination rates are so much lower, because it's a conservative area, and therefore the conservatives are bad, QAnon is bad. Do you get what I'm saying here? I hope this is making sense. They needed that to happen, and it did. So there's a reason that January 6th looked like the way it did. There's a reason why it's almost as if they wanted it to be worse than it was. So when they had to go in front of the cameras and talk about how it was close to being as bad as 9/11 or worse, it's like, what the fuck? You guys definitely missed a part of the play, didn't you? Like a bomb was supposed to fucking go off, wasn't it? Maybe it was those pipe bombs that they threw all over the place earlier in the day, and they never caught those guys, did they? But they caught all of the MAGA protesters. So the infodemic, guys, is now going to be treated no different than a virus. It's going to be combated with governmental legislation. It's going to be combated on an NGO, think tank, nonprofit level, which I'm not making that up. It actually already has, which is why I'm bringing this up. The World Economic Forum is discussing the possibility of automating the fact-checking process. And they're going to be using machine learning, AI technologies to do so. There's also a separate project being released, guys, or ongoing, called Project Mercury. It's not the space shuttle one. Project Mercury. And guess who's sponsoring this one? It's the Rockefeller Foundation. They've so far gathered $20 million, this Mercury project, from people like the Rockefeller Foundation, on behalf, by the way, in partnership with the National Science Foundation, finding ways to combat COVID and vaccine disinformation and misinformation with the sole purpose of raising vaccination rates in the United States and third world countries. Okay? So here we have Project Mercury. That's one separate entity attempting to harness what they call disinformation. Okay? Then you have the World Economic Forum, a separate entity, both global NGO think tank types. You have the World Economic Forum saying we need to automate the fact-checking process. So note the similar goals, objectives between the two groups, right? Not connected, but they're doing the same thing. So the cool thing, trendy thing right now to be doing is to innovate, technologically innovate ways, techniques, tactics, and tools to stop disinformation in its tracks. But this is where you guys might not be thinking as deeply into it, right? You're thinking, well, that's obvious, censorship, duh. And it's like, no, it's deeper than that. The means in which they're censoring is important to understand. I get it. We all know they're going to censor, but the small incremental steps they're taking is what we need to recognize. And what the WEF has published and what Project Mercury has published is really telling, and I'll tell you exactly why, and it exposes their plans. Project Mercury is spending and the Rockefeller Foundation is spending all of their resources on behavioral scientists to examine vaccine disinformation, to help identify gaps in education, as they call it, and a slew of other things so they can target these demographics, recorrect toggle the narrative in place to something else to be more impactful for them, these target demographics, so they then get vaccinated. So yeah, COVID might be disappearing, but for whatever reason, this Project Mercury and WEF are still really talking about clamping down on disinformation to increase vaccine uptake. So as I said, there is a causal connection between the two. Did I not just say that? I told you that conspiracy theories were going to, for the first time, be quantified as violence because of COVID. And look at what they're saying. Vaccine uptake will increase because of conspiracy theories are suppressed, is what they're saying. We are getting our best behavioral scientists to understand the motives, the intent, the types of people, aka the networks, the groups behind these posts. Our behavioral scientists will help us differentiate between satire posts, for instance, versus real hateful right-wing content. You understand? Can a machine do that is the big question. Can a machine determine whether someone is making a joke, making fun of racism, right? Or a racist themselves, for instance? Can a machine identify when a person's joking about a bomb, or even just says bomb in a sentence that's unrelated to a threat, without flagging, as a threat to the FBI, like they do? Do you get what I'm saying? That's the question the WEF brings up. But the behavioral scientist thing is the key, because check this. Note the interest in behavioral science. Remember, I told you just a moment ago, the future battle space is the mind of everybody, because each of us are beacons for disinformation, according to them. And what's happening? Well, it's a national security threat, the infodemic, just like the pandemic is. Guys, the infodemic is not a exaggerated, hyperbolic buzzword. It's the definition that will identify the forthcoming wave of censorship, thought control, essentially, that we're going to be seeing. We're talking about the comprehensive shutdown of this type of shit. And the WEF said specifically in their articles, my point, is they didn't mention behavioral scientists like Project Mercury did. But what they did mention was that their AI technology that they were referring to as being the first one to be capable of censoring on this scale talked specifically about cracking the code, talking about how they can determine context finally. How this AI program can finally, for the first time, really, really accurately determine context between satire and what's not satire. And I think they said something along the lines of, even if this machine can't detect that, there will be human input along the way. But they even also said that there will be it'll be a few humans, a select few, to be the ultimate directorate above this AI machine to direct what disinformation is and what's not. So that's the question. When we ask, wait, but who decides what disinformation is? They say, oh, we'll have a panel of people. But here's the thing. We already know what the threshold for disinformation is, right? It's the Reuters fact check. It's the fact check you get on the first page of your Google. And I'm not fucking kidding, because when Fauci was being questioned by, what's his name, Rand Paul or whatever, Rand Paul was asking him, he was asking Fauci, because he played a clip of Fauci talking about how good natural immunity is. Because with COVID, Fauci says, no, that's not good enough, you have to get vaccinated, which people took up issue with, because natural immunity is often better, right? Historically. So Rand Paul was like, why did your opinion change? And Fauci's like, excuse me, sir, you're actually taking that out of context, and if you'd refer to the Reuters fact check, you would know that actually what I said was. So even Fauci is referring to the Reuters fact check as official record. So if that is the caliber of fact checking that is going to be considered what disinformation is, then people like you watching this and me making this are screwed. Do you understand? And there will probably be a lot of people caught up in it that have nothing to do with what we're doing either, just because they made satire, made jokes. And even though the WEF says in their article that the main point of why we want to be able to determine what context is we don't want to ban people incorrectly. We don't want to infringe on liberties, is how they put it, or something like that, which is great and all, but we know that's not what they do, because they're already referring to the Reuters fact check as Bible at this point, and that's wrong, and it's been demonstrated as being wrong. In fact, a lot of people banned at the beginning of COVID for saying, a little bit too much about particular labs in the area of the outbreak zone, well, they were vindicated not long after, a couple years later. Not entirely, but now it's common mainstream thought that there could be a chance that it came from in that redacted location, or instead of the food market, right? Guys, so the infodemic is not hyperbole, exaggerated buzzwords that fucking media uses. The infodemic is the name of the mental version of a pandemic, a contagion of the mind that is spreading rapidly, affecting many, and in their eyes, prompting widespread physical violence, whether it be picking up a nail gun and storming the FBI building, whether it be blocking a road with a big truck because you are all for QAnon, remember that story before January 6th, or because of January, or if January 6th, you name it. It's unbelievable. And that is what they have turned us into, perception-wise. You have to remember that really just what the media is spellcasting. I know it sounds silly and goofy, but that's how I call it. It's kind of like alchemical in a way. Like, it's alchemy of the mind. You are transforming someone's mind from one perspective to another using trickery. The only difference between your entire mindset and the truth is whether or not Anderson Cooper stands in a knee-deep hole that makes it look like the place is flooded, or if he's being honest and just stands in the puddle, which is only 2 inches deep. You get what I'm saying? That famous photo. I mean, that might have been actually, and I mean this unironically, like a lot of shit is taken out of context, and we have to be careful of disinformation too, used against us. Things like I said, frazzle drip, QAnon. We lost a lot of people because of QAnon, man. The entire landscape of the conspiracy, truther, whatever you want to call it, community changed because of that. You want to talk about social engineering? You want to talk about psychological operations? I'll tell you about the digital transformation that took place in the conspiracy community, where all of a sudden I woke up one day and started seeing fucking Q everywhere. Q this, Q that. The entire focus was turned on Q instead of real shit, instead of normal pacing where we looked at everything. A lot of the pizza-related stuff, because remember I told you it was still fresh. It was only a year old at that time, but a lot of everything. But now it was only Q, 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 only. And then they banned everyone. They just got rid of everyone. I guess I'll finally end with the story I meant to tell at the beginning. I went onto YouTube the other day for my 5th account. Turns out to live stream nowadays, or to upload a video longer than 15 minutes, you have to verify your account. And I don't mean the cool checkmark verify that the cool kids get. I mean you have to send in a picture of your driver's license or a 30-second facial selfie, video selfie of yourself. The only other option is to give it time. They say after a few months you get verification if you upload a lot. This is their defense against bots, as they put it. So what they straight up said about the selfie option was that their little prompt underwords. Like, there's 3 ways that you can verify your account now. Step 1, send in a picture of your driver's license. Make sure the entire birthday is in frame as well as your name. Step 2, here's the important part. Step 2, facial recognition. You can take a 30-second selfie of yourself so we can run it through our visual recognition algorithms and tell whether or not you've been banned from our services in the past. Wait, what? Are you fucking kidding me? So they straight up, I'm not joking, they straight up said that. Now, I know this is not necessarily new, but it for the first time set in to me that I may very well have been iced out of being able to communicate with the wider world, digitally at least, which is the only way I would be able to communicate with so many people. But memory hold, you still have Rockfin, you still have BitChute, dude, you still have DLive. You think regular, normal people are fucking using those sites, man? Yeah, they'll click on it as a novelty. But the average normal person, when they say, yo, check this vid out, are going to YouTube. That's the only place that I would ever be able to reach normal, I don't want to say normies, uninitiated people like I used to be before I made my videos. The only reason I do what I do is because if I could change, so can at least a little bit of other people. I know it's an uphill battle. People tell me that all the time. I already know that. I don't care. It's not about that. Because I make my videos deep enough for the weathered of us, the veterans of us, to enjoy and take value from, while simultaneously also not being too overwhelming for beginners, newbies. But if I can't access those people, then what's the point, right? I'm just preaching to the choir. And now that we've been scattered like rats, we're all over these different platforms that you don't know what's legitimate and what's not, what's going to succeed, what's going to fail, even if it was legitimate. DLive was the spot for a little bit, now it's not. Now Rockfin is the spot, but even though it's the spot, I still don't have many viewers over there. Because guess what? Where everyone was, YouTube. And why is that? Even some very battle-hardened people, conspiracy people, are still on YouTube, and it's because it's convenience. Convenience is the greatest weapon against mankind, as is apathy. One and the other, they kind of go together, right? Guys, the infodemic is far more important than you can ever imagine. Don't ever think it's a buzzword. That is the official doctrine of attack of the first known mental contagion, which is the conspiracy theory. For the first time in human history, the conspiracy theory is somehow a grave danger overnight, as opposed to all times throughout history. They'll tell you, well, it's because of the internet era that changed it. As soon as everyone was able to start communicating with each other, they were able to organize, and these terror cells were able to blah, 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 blah. Nah, dude. I mean, yes, but that's not enough, man. This is a huge escalation that we've seen coming forever, and now it's finally happening. I mean, for God's sakes, look what happened in Canada with the truckers. They did nothing but honk their horns and populate the streets in city centers. And they've seized fucking bank accounts of the people that were there. People were fired because they were there. And they seized bank accounts or canceled the services of like Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, I forget which one, of people that donated to it. That's unprecedented. And because the propaganda has been so intense, the wider public just doesn't seem to care. Or if they do, they don't really recognize how impactful that was. In the same way that they didn't realize at the time how impactful the Patriot Act would have been and has been. The Patriot Act is what allowed all of this to happen. It set the original precedent for domestic U.S. surveillance, surveilling each other, them, the government surveilling us, taking in our emails, our phone calls, our text messages, the things we post online, the images, the videos. Snapchat has filters, so that means visual recognition. Now they have biometric data on us from every angle. Think of every Snapchat of your face you've ever taken. It probably has a complete catalog of how your face is. They could probably recreate a CGI or holographic version of you pretty realistically, sort of like they did Tupac with all the pictures and photos and videos you've shared on the internet. It's all about centralization, baby. You centralize devices and technology, aka we all get internet IDs. Things become simpler, streamlined. Life becomes a giant iPhone interface of app tiles that wiggle satisfactorily for those with the OCD. That's what it becomes. All of our devices are connected. The Internet of Things is well in swing, so to speak. It actually is, though. Smart homes, smart lights, smart thermostats, smart garage doors, all things that connect the digital to the physical. And one day the physical and the digital will be seamlessly intertwined. As Jacques Vallée put in his brief history of the future, he talked about implantable chips in apparel, as things like apparel and other places like dams and aqueducts and waterways so that they can measure water levels. We're talking about smart dust. Jacques Attali, back in whatever year it was, the fucking 60s, 70s, I don't know, he predicted smart dust or talked about smart dust all the way back then. I'm just talking about centralization. As technology advances, it's inevitable, as some believe, and as we've covered, Bertrand Russell, that power becomes inevitably centralized because of the advancement of technology. Because it allows like a wider effect to be wielded by lesser people. Anybody can communicate now with millions of people, where back in the day that would be a godlike power. Okay? So now you can be a single person and have like the ears of 20 million people at your disposal. That's a huge army. That's a massive army, right? That's powerful. You might want to make sure that now that all of these people that have the capability to do some things and have some resources for bad things if they should choose to do so, right? You're going to have to counter that in some way. And this is what they're doing now. I'm telling you, they even linked to studies. That World Economic Forum even linked to a study where they were able, using this brand new machine learning technology, they were able to visually map out the networks that these posters, these tweeters, these video creators were in that were apparently spreading disinformation. So for instance, like if I made a tweet, memory hold would be a little circle on the flow chart, right, with a little circle around it. And then if somebody retweeted my tweet, there would be a little line leading from me to that user's account name on Twitter, let's say. That's what it looked like, except with thousands and thousands and thousands of accounts. So if you visually trace network traffic, people who interact with tweets, you can trace the identities of people with certain ideological leanings, beliefs, political leanings, right? That's important. And then what you can do is quantify them on a threat level based on the content they post. And right now, we're not relying on full automation AI that's able to detect context. So they're saying that we're behind on detection, and this will revolutionize it. But here's the thing. Why will it revolutionize it? Not because it'll just catch them, and I want you to listen to this point. There you go. Okay, now you're listening. I want you to listen to this point. They're not going to just be able to use this AI to detect disinformation on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. They are talking about the origins of the information, guys. Do you understand me? They said specifically that the disinformation that we see weaponized against the public, is how they put it, it originates from the darkest corners of the internet. Well, where could that be? Could it possibly be where QAnon originated from? That dark, dirty, dingy terrorist corner called 4chan and 8chan? Of which are a type of websites that are openly being attacked now, such as Kiwi Farms, which I am not promoting necessarily. I never really visited there. And I know that they had a lot of personal sensitive info up there. It's kind of fucked up, but like, I get, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that they're going after Kiwi Farms and which is really no different. Like if QAnon posted to Kiwi Farms instead of 4chan and 8chan, it would have been understandable in a way, I guess. But here's the thing, what they did with Kiwi Farms. Not only did they erase the website, they made it a point to erase the archives, meaning they went and somehow managed to leverage archive.org, its own business, to remove it from the archive. Anybody can archive web pages. If something is important for people like us, typically, myself, who are archivers, data collectors, when an important news article comes out with information that's like, holy shit, how did they even get this through? You make an archive in the case that they remove it. And usually you use archive.is or whatever, but either way, the Wayback Machine, archive.org do it already. My point is that you can get an archive of every website and how it looked in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007. It's kind of cool to look back on what the homepage of Yahoo News used to look like back in like 2002 or whenever. Get what I'm saying? But of all the things, they removed Kiwi Farms from the archives as well, aka they scrubbed history. They erased history. That was like however long, 15, 20 years worth of community. People posting on there all day talking. It was a whole self-sustaining community, just not unlike Reddit and different subreddit communities that have existed forever and know each other and get to know each other and love each other or whatever it is. Even if Kiwi Farms is more fucked up in your opinion. And they just erased it like a blip. Erased from not only the present because of the website, but erased from the past as well. So you can't even retroactively research what Kiwi Farms was, because as far as you're concerned now, it doesn't exist. Other than in media outlets where they say they're getting rid of it, right? That is what the Infodemic is going to do. They're talking about getting rid of you in the source point is what they said. They said we need to stop this before it even gets on these platforms, guys. You understand me? You're not even going to make it on Twitter. You're not even going to get as far as Instagram or Facebook, guys. They're getting the information before it even gets posted on 4chan, before it even gets posted on these different corners of the net that I don't know what corners are talking about, but we're seeing it though, because even if they don't remove these corners of the web, right, places like 4chan, they're not going to outright ban the conspiracy community. They're more than likely going to find greater benefit in hijacking it, which they're starting to do now. I've been on that website, that subreddit, for a long time, and recently there's been a lot of bot activity. It's fucking everywhere, guys. And when you bring up the dead internet theory, there's minimal humans on the internet. It's only bots. I mean, Jesus Christ, if it isn't true already, it is becoming true. You really can't tell what's real and what. You still can, but there's a lot that you can't. And we're emerging into that, as a media article put it, a post-truth world. And of course, I look at what a post-truth world is far differently than what the media thought a post-truth world is, which is a good thing for me and for you, and honestly, objectively, because I still believe in objective truth and not my truth, #mytruth, trademark. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, guys. It was a real fucking moment for me when I realized that I don't know if I'm going to pass this facial recognition on YouTube. I literally let's pretend I decided to retire from conspiracy. I'm putting that all in the past now. It's not that I don't believe in it. It's just that, I just want to move on. It's a lot of dark stuff, but I still like making videos. Maybe I can start up another channel, and maybe some of you will follow me there, even though I'm not doing conspiracy stuff. It'll be a movie review channel. It'll be an unboxing channel, a kids channel, something like that, under a different name, of course. But I can never make a living from it. I've been erased from that luxury. I don't have that privilege anymore because they know my face. They visually, using a computer, recognized what I look like, and now I'm forever banned from using their service. YouTube is a part of Google. What other part of Google will I be banned from? Well, I'm banned now from ad trends or Google Ads. So that means that even if it's not YouTube that I try to make an income from or do something fun from, remember, unboxing, kids show, whatever, something fun outside of conspiracies, doesn't matter, because I am not, eligible to be allowed in those partnership programs anymore. And as things continue to centralize, it makes you really realize that, think about it, guys, they already have this data, right? Just because they're not using it against you yet doesn't mean they won't. In other words, one day I might find that Instagram, I can't make another account because they have decided to employ the same tactic as YouTube. And when I go to submit my face visual recognition data, they detect the outdated visual recognition data from my first account that was banned. Does that make sense? So it's going to automatically flag the results as, oh, this guy has been banned in the past, we can't let him on now. In other words, they're going to retroactively maybe target you, right? If you've been banned once, even if you've been riding clean for years now, never got banned again, you've left all this stuff behind, whole new life. If you ever create an account where you have to verify it with your ID or your face, you're permanently iced out forever. You understand what that means? And as we move into the world of a cashless society, a digital ID society, which, by the way, cash comes, I don't know what comes first. The internet ID is going to be before the universal digital ID, and may in fact serve as an important stepping stone. People are more willing to accept an internet ID before they accept, I think, something like a digital wallet. But that's not really implicit. I mean, that's not really clear, though, because, these digital ID systems are going to start on your iPhone, as they are already developing them with the vaccine passports. You see how these elements all play into each other. But, with Samsung and Apple and these different companies that, last year or the year before that were coming out talking about developing iPhone apps that combine your wallet with your vaccine passport, with your this, with your that. Well, that's just going to happen whether we like it or not. But I guess what we're just giving way for is centralization, because what that does is it gets rid of the need of a physical wallet and combines everything into a singular device. Quite literally the definition of centralization, right? You're combining everything into one. It's a lot easier to control a few entities than it is to control many different entities. It's better to have Instagram, Facebook, and whatever as a single company, now Meta, than it is to have them as separate companies. They're all at the great congeal is happening. Everything is combining. They have implicitly in other, I forget what app it was, but they straight up said that when you register on this website, they may use data from other applications to inform their decisions of moderation and banning. In other words, that opens the door up for, if you were banned on Twitter, perhaps Instagram will decide to ban you because you have a record. In other words, a lifetime permanent record. Whereas that never used to be the case. The internet was never like that. You only existed in the form that you wanted for the length that you wanted under the username that you created. Gone are those days. Gone. And they soon will be. For now, I'm lucky I've been able to make this new YouTube account. But I can't even say I'm really lucky because who gives a fuck in the end? It's fucking YouTube. The only reason I'm happy is because maybe, just maybe if I'm careful, I'll still be able to get my videos out to newbies and sleepyheads like me that because of those videos that they stumble on, they ended up really changing the trajectory of everything that they thought they knew. That's what I hope, but the future looks bleak when it comes to centralization of technology, the development of smart cities, the ultimate merger, physical and digital. If you enjoy my work, guys, please consider supporting the show. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. Best way to support me is it just following my content. Rockfin.com/memoryhold. Bitchute.com/memoryhold. I'm on YouTube, Memoryhold 5.0. When you look Memoryhold 5.0 up, you're going to see two different accounts. I can't tell you which one to subscribe to. Just subscribe to both. Whatever one has the videos on it is the right one. Working on getting a podcast out that's up and coming. Stay posted. Wasn't able to get that out as quickly as I wanted to. But I have everything prepped, got the RSS feed, got everything set up. Hoping to really put some audio versions out now. Who knows? Perhaps this will be the first one, being as it was nice and neat. What else? Oh, yeah. $10 a month on Rockfin. Gets you exclusive content of mine, gets you exclusive content of everyone else on the platform. Alternatively, you can subscribe to my Patreon, get exclusive content. And that's about it, guys. I just appreciate you paying attention, listening, and leaving a comment. Leave a comment. I want to know what you guys think.